Hey, it's Tiffany. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I'm feeling this pull away from social media and towards real connection. And that's exactly why I started my newsletter. It's a place for us to connect authentically without having to jump through algorithms. I usually share a little bit about what's going on in my life, my family, practical tips for 2 career homes, and just generally things that are inspiring me. I'd love for you to join me so we can create this little online space and we can lean into all of the ands in our lives together. You can sign up at the link in our show notes. Enjoy this episode. I'm a small town kid born with a big city spirit. I choose to play a lot of awesome roles in life: mom, wife, entrepreneur, CEO, board member, investor, and mentor. 17 years ago, I founded a marketing consultancy, and ever since, my husband JR and I have been building our careers and our family on the exact same timeline. Yep. That means 4 kids, 3 businesses, 2 careers, all building towards one life we love. When I discovered I could purposefully embrace all of these ands in my life, it unlocked my world. And I want that for you too. I'm Tiffany Souter, and this is Scared Confident. I'm excited to have Brian Kavicky on with me. So he's been in my life for over a decade, started as a sales coach and then kind of turned into I would say a business coach for me, and now does a lot of training inside of all the companies that I own and am part of. I definitely see him as part of our success formula. And Brian has always been really helpful for me in mindset, just like seeing things from a different perspective. You can so get inside your own bucket as, a human being, but I think specifically as a leader, it can be hard sometimes to just really see things differently than the way that you see them. And Brian has always really been that for me. So I asked him 3 questions, kind of 3 different scenarios of mindset coming into 2023. Getting your mind right is a really big part of winning the year. And so I asked him 3 scenarios. One is, if you're looking at the coming year and saying, hey, the economy is bad, if that's a belief that you have, how do you get your mindset right for that? The other is, there's a lot of movement in jobs. If you have recently had to let people go, it's not going the way that we thought, and we had to let people go. How do you get your mindset right as a leader, hiring manager in that environment? And then the third is, if you've been affected by a job loss, how do you get your head right for the job search process? So I asked Brian about those 3 scenarios, and I'm excited for you to listen in on our conversation. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about mindset stuff with you. We're in an economic environment that is less certain than the ones we've been in the past. I want to talk to you about that because you have, I would say, a counter headline perspective on the mindset required to exist in any economic environment. But news headlines want us to believe oh my word, we're in a recession, or the sky is falling, or tech as we knew it is dead, or you're never going to get another new car again in your life. Supply chain will never be fixed. Bread will never exist again, whatever the things are. And that very sensational news environment can create really specific realities for our heads as leaders, our mindset in the way that we plan, the confidence that we present to our organization, the way that we think about what's doable and what's not doable. And for my whole time working with you, knowing you, which is over 10 years, you've always had a very counter headline way of viewing that. And I think that's worth capturing for listeners. And I think it's especially poignant for me because on Friday, we're going to be kicking off the year with the Element 3 team, casting vision for this is what we believe 2023 is going to feel like. These are the key initiatives. And all around them, there's people getting laid off, and there's always fear in the agency environment, because if you've been in this environment for any extended period of time in your career, you've probably been through a layoff. And so there's all this sort of trepidation. So it's not my job to stand in front of everybody and say, I promise nothing bad is going to happen. But it is, I think, about creating a shared mindset of, no, we just react to the problems that we find, and we do that with tools that we have. And so I don't know. I just want to talk about that and hear you export. Where's your head at? What advice are you giving? What are you seeing in the marketplace? And just go there.
So for information that you get, you always have to look at what the motive of that information is coming from. So the news motivation is to get viewers. So the worse the news is, the more we as human beings like chaos, we tune in. I mean, imagine a news channel where it was just good news all day. How many viewers would they get? So they know that they need to give bad news and they need to give it all the time. So that's all they seek and all they seek to deliver for viewers, which is how they make their money. So once you know, oh, their motivation is to give bad news because that's how they make money, then do I really want to watch that? Do I really want to pay attention to it? So then it's, who do I want to listen to instead? If it's the economy, I should listen to economists, because economists' motivation is to be accurate. And the more accurate they are, the more money they make, the more speaking engagements they get, all those things. So I'm going to go where the motivation is to be accurate versus to tell bad news. So it's choose your news source, because you choose what you choose to believe. Your belief is a choice that determines the outcome. It is not that the world tells me what to believe and I should just take it. It's, what do I want to believe, and does that fit the outcome that I'm looking to get to?
One of the things you talked to me about early was this idea of you have a choice to make about whether or not you are going to believe you're a victim to what's happening. Can you speak to it, and then I can say the specific example?
So when something happens to you, you can say, why is this happening to me? This person did this to me. I'm a victim of the circumstances. But most of the time, bad stuff has another side of the coin where it benefits you. So all of your wisdom in life that you have today is probably based on mistakes and bad stuff that happened to you. So in the moment, it feels bad. In the future, it feels like, wow, I learned something from that. I gained wisdom from that. So you're making a choice in those moments of, am I going to say, oh, there's nothing I can do about this, I just have to sit here and feel bad for myself? Or am I going to do something, learn something, take wisdom away from this? Is this a lesson learned instead? That's a choice.
One of my early responses to like some impending doom that I believed was going to happen was to just freeze. How do you work with people to get through that period where it's like, no, you have to face the brutal facts? That's like very helpful articulation to me of like, okay, yeah, we do actually have to look at what is the reality of the situation. That doesn't mean that I have to live with the consequence of what happens for the rest of my life. I get to figure out what my response to that's going to be and take control over it. And I think that freeze state, or that like stick your head in the sand, or want to be able to keep your people's head in the right place, is I think a reason why you can kind of like put rosy glasses on sometimes when you're leading, when the facing the brutal facts is actually a more like ready tool that you should be leading your people with. It's like, we really have got to rally around where we actually are. Now, we aren't a victim to that, but there are going to have to be decisions that we navigate together to get there. So how do you, as you work with people, get people to like get there quickly?
Well, freezing occurs when the choices are overwhelming. So people freeze when they go, well, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, could do this. I just don't know where to start. And the answer to get out of it is pick one. Mm-hmm. Pick the one that feels the best. Pick the one that actually solves where the worry is coming from and moves you in the direction of, if I do this, I will worry less because I will know this. So getting out of a freeze when you feel like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, I can't do anything, is do something. Even the military says that, they don't care what you do as long as you take an action in that moment. Pilots, it's the same thing, is don't just sit there and analyze it, do something immediately. And for pilots, it's fly the plane first. So it's always do something, and then you won't freeze.
Okay, so that's the decision point of like, you're assessing what's going on, you're discerning whether or not you're getting news source or information from a place. What's the mindset going into any year? This year, we've had more conversations with clients saying like, hey, we have to get approval from a new layer of management for this spend. We need to, only approve 6 months of the budget, not 12 months of budget, because we're uncertain on what sales are going to be. So those types of things that start to settle into an environment, whether it's recessionary or just a new environment. What's the mindset that you think leaders or companies need to have in this environment that 2023 is presenting?
It's abundance versus scarcity. So in that example you gave, you can't control that a company is choosing to run with those things of being cautionary, not knowing what to do. But what your response is what do we do with this? If we know we're not getting as much money from this client as we thought we were going to get, let's go find another client because the money's out there. But if you think this is all we have, there's only one client, we're not getting it, there's nothing we can do, that victim mindset, which comes from scarcity, you're going to just be stuck there. So it's just go find another client, just go find more money. If somebody else is saying, well, we're only going to spend half, then find somebody else that's only going to spend half, and now you're back at whole again instantly. It's that I'm looking at the world through the lens of there's not enough. And I think COVID and the crisis did a lot of that. When you can't buy toilet paper or bread, you think scarcity all the time. And it's been drilled into us. Everything's scarce.
Yeah, talent's scarce.
So just find an alternative. If talent is scarce, well, then you have to up your talent finding things to find the best people, because the good companies who have done the right things don't have the talent problems that companies that are not attractive to talent have, which is what you'd expect. But it's that starting with, if I viewed the world as if there was plenty to go around, what would I be doing now? I just go find somewhere else.
I have also helped. My brain said like, my how might need to change, but my if is the same.
Yes.
So if I will is an imperative. Yes, I will. But how I get there, like you said, your original plan may have said 6 clients. It might need to end up being 11 or whatever it is.
Right.
Because your how has to flex based on the reality of what's playing out. That actually leads me to this like visceral commitment to goals. I feel like I also learned that from you. Can you speak to that? Like this, like, what do you mean? No, we're hitting it. Like, we're hitting it. Like, it's not looking good. Like, no, we're hitting it.
Right.
I feel like we had that conversation, like, about like, the trajectory. Like, no, we're hitting it. You're hitting it. Like,
Yeah,
what do you mean you're hitting it?
It's that we're halfway through the year and we're not tracking towards the goal. So we're thinking about changing our goal and lowering it.
Yes.
No, go for the same goal. But you spent all that time figuring out why the goal was what it was, why it was important, why it mattered. Why would you give up on it just because you faced adversity? And to your point, the how changes. Why would you stop? Is all of a sudden it's not important? It's kind of you're weighing things on a scale. If it's I'm faced with a tough decision and that means I have to lay off a lot of people, well, which one do I want? Do I want the difficulty of laying off the people, or do I want the difficulty of closing the business because I ran out of money? Pick one. It's pretty easy to decide. If it's, I have this goal, well, do I care about the goal anymore? Is it not important? Well, then maybe we should change it. But if the goal was important, then I need to adjust to get back on track. I need to do things differently.
I feel like I like to think I surround myself particularly with really high achievers, that they want to be right at the end of the year. So they want to change the goal to like make the percentage chance of them being right higher. And instead of like, let's say you work your face off towards the original goal and you miss it by 8%. If you lower your goal by 20% so that you're right, you left 12% on the table. Does my analogy make sense?
Yeah, that's a different mindset problem. That one is, as human beings, we measure gaps more than we measure gains. So people that say, well, I want to lose weight. They say, I want to lose 60 pounds this year. And they lose 52. They will look first and say, I failed. I didn't hit my goal. It's like, wait a second, you lost 52 pounds. That is significant. Yes, you didn't hit your goal, but you were striving for it until the last day. You did everything possible. We are more proud of what we did on the gain than missing the actual goal. So even if you say, nope, we're going for the goal, we're not changing it, and you fall short, you're probably going to outperform what you would have lowered it to had you lowered it. So it's, which one do I want? Do I want to see if I can do it and keep on track and then say, wow, I did a lot. I did all that I could. I feel good about that. Or do I just lower it and say, well, I was right, but it's not even close to what it could have been? Which alternative do you want? Pick one. The key is commit to it. Whatever your choice or decision is, commit to that decision.
So if you were addressing the company on Friday around this idea of mindset, abundance, anything else you would add to, hey, this is what it is going to take from us as a team to be sitting here a year from now saying like, we did the thing?
I like the phrase, we are not participating. We are creating our own reality. So you're going to hear a lot of things. We can't do this. Even in your own thoughts, it's not possible. This is too aggressive. We don't know what's going to happen. We're not participating in that mindset, is we're going to figure out how to make this happen because we like that outcome better. So we feel like we have the right people. We feel like we have the right company, the right customers to do what we're setting out to do. And that's what we're going to roll with. And if adversity happens, we'll figure it out when it happens. We'll probably create some problems along the way, which we'll figure out too. But this is what we're going to do, and we're going to commit to doing it. That's kind of it.
What do you say when people say, does this ever get easier?
I believe it gets easier. History repeats itself. Cycles repeat themselves. And when you get used to the cycle, it's not such a big deal anymore. And you're going, okay, I know what I did last time. I know what the outcome was. I'll be okay for this. Yeah, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scared, but I'm just going to use the playbook I used last time and adjust it for the current conditions. That I do think that gets easier. I think that's why some people are unfazed by things. And some people are actually like, this is great. I mean, we're forecast to have a depression in the 2030s. And if you know that's going to happen and you're prepared, a depression makes a lot of rich people richer. So it's, okay, well, I can use this or I can be victimized by it. What preparation do I want to prepare for?
So the other two places where I'm just reflecting on mindset, like scanning the world around me, in certain sectors, there's been spaces where there's been a lot of layoffs. And I think one of the places, understandably, the energy in that situation is put on the employee affected, like understandably. They're displaced, totally get it. But there's also a real like psychological journey, especially in your first part of your career when you're the hiring manager or you sat across from somebody and you were like, I think you're amazing. This is the role. You're trusting me with, your mortgage, your young kids, your college age kids. You start to like understand their life and you feel a sense of commitment to the fact that they trusted you. And if I hadn't had good mentors around me, it could have taken me, I think, longer to sort of get my head back together of like, my job is to keep running the company. What advice do you give in those moments on the employer side, the hiring manager side? Like, how do you get your mindset right?
I think the hiring manager needs to realize that there are things that they can control and commit to and things that they can't. And you are not responsible for someone's life and the choices that they've made in their lives. You are responsible for delivering what you said you'd deliver. And as a company, when you hire someone, you're basically saying, we're paying you to do a job. Well, if the job doesn't exist anymore, we're not going to pay you. That's the harsh reality of we are committing to this. We're not promising to make you rich. We're not promising to take care of you for the rest of your life. We're not promising that all your bills are paid. We're promising to pay you for the contribution you're going to make here. And that's where it starts and stops. So don't overset expectations with people so that they hear something different in that of this is going to be great, this is going to be wonderful. The more positive expectations, the more opportunity you have to let somebody down of this is reality.
I get the sentiment of that, but like the reality of it in a highly competitive talent situation, we're like selling our culture and all kinds of things that are not just, look, this is an economic exchange. You have talents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What we're selling unilaterally, or what most people competing for talent, I say most, in the world that I live in, culture becomes a really big part of the hiring employment agreement. And I think that's where it gets crusty a little bit on this.
But isn't the culture that you're delivering what they thought it was?
Yeah, that's fair.
So your responsibility is to deliver the culture that they're experiencing. People that have worked on their culture and have significantly good cultures don't have to recruit. People show up and say, I want to be here. So this idea of we have to sell them on what we do is actually a sign that your culture is not that good, because you have to sell people on it. It's when people show up and say, I want to be a part of this. I'll take a pay cut to work here. There are a lot of people today in a tough competitive market for hiring taking pay cuts to work with companies where they think it's a good opportunity for them, and they're taking the pay cut. You don't have to sell people.
What's your response to saying it's the greatest failure of leadership to have to lay people off? Do you agree that? Don't agree with that?
No, I don't agree. I think where I see leaders fail is they hold on to people when the business can't support that. And that's where the business and they fail, is that they're not making the hard choice that keeps their responsibility of keeping the business afloat, growing the company. They're not living up to that when they don't lay off people. It's actually the opposite.
Yeah, and it can have big cultural impacts when you don't. There's a lot of things for sure.
Now, if a company says we exist to employ people and they fail, that's okay. But you can't say we exist to grow, we exist to stay alive, we exist to provide this value to our customers, and then not make a hard choice. That's against what you said you were doing.
I've texted a few people that I know have been on the sort of the employer side of it, of like having to and say like it feels really big and like a really big personal failure, but they'll be okay, and so will you. But it feels very personal in seasons for sure.
Yeah.
And then what about if people are out in the job market right now and they are maybe got laid off for the first time ever and are suddenly realizing, hey, I've got this reality now that I've got to say to my next employer, like, I got laid off. May not have been for performance, but what would be your advice on mindset there?
I would say to use this time to figure out what you want and pursue what you want and what you think you need. What you believe you need today is, I need money coming in the door. Well, that's easy to fix. Go get a job that gets money coming in the door. Go wait tables because they're scurrying for people. Go to where people are willing to pay you money to do something as you take the time to look for what you want, and don't settle for something that just pays the bills and has you looking again, because now you're going to have that turnover on your resume of, well, I went here because I needed a job. And people will sort of look down on you for that later. You're creating a problem. They'd love to hear, so I decided I'm looking for what I want. I got these small jobs to pay the bills, and I found what I want, and that's why I'm applying to this position. That's a good hire interview right there.
And the scarcity thought on the financial side can get people into bad decisions on the job career side.
Yeah, they're setting themselves up to get fired or fail because they're doing something they don't want to do, or they're working for somebody that is not there to develop and grow them as people, because they know that people just want to get paid. You know, it's kind of the people take advantage of the weak mindset. Don't be weak in those moments.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you're like a guy who, how many clients do you serve? I mean, lots. How many businesses do you come into contact with in a given year, do you think?
Probably hundreds.
Yeah. Okay. And you've been doing this for a long time,
12
decade.
years.
Yeah. So 1,000 companies, easy. You've had a contact with, guiding, directing, helping get clear on strategy, sales training, all this revenue growth. What are you learning right now? Like, where are you seeing I need to grow here so that can continue to stay relevant, push people, just like continue to grow and expand?
For me, I know that I have a talent to grow people and grow leaders. It's allocating time to where and who that is for is a much more cautious and thought through thing. My mindset used to be, well, if you deserve help and you need help, I'll give it to you. Now I'm going to pick and choose who that is a little bit tighter than I have recently, because waste is what triggers me. And if I waste, that really gets me hard. So I need to be better at making sure I'm not wasting. What do I need to get better as a skill set? I think speed is good. I can do stuff quickly. I can make change happen quickly. I think keeping that speed up longer for people, I have to figure that out a little bit, because I know how to create the hockey stick, and then it's, well, how do I create the next hockey stick and the next hockey stick? I don't know whether that's possible, but I'd like to push it and see if that can happen over and over and over.
On the first one, what's the words you use or what are your strategies for when you're like, I don't know that me mentoring them or giving them an hour is the right exchange right now for my time? And what do you say?
It's, do they want it? Do they feel they need it? Do they have to have it? If they're like, yeah, I really like to get there, or someday, they don't want it. If people are saying, I need it for these reasons because this is what has to happen, that's good. The other one is, I'm mostly judging based on what kind of a person I think they are. And good people typically will do the things necessary to make the right things happen. People who aren't they're shortcut seekers. They do things selfishly. I can't work with those kind of people. And I'll just call it. I mean, use my words. I'll just tell them, I think you're selfish, or I think this is not good. I fired a client last year because they had character problems. And I said, I can't work with you because your character is in question and you're calling mine out in question because of that. I can't do that.
I'll have sometimes people reach out to me and say like, I love your story. I'd like to get to know you. And I would like to say that I would like to say yes to that, but it just doesn't scale my time. And my kids are at a season where I really want to be time available for them. There were lots of years where I was not time available for them. And I struggle with the way to say like, no.
If you have your priorities in order, that's when it's easier to say no. And that's what you actually tell the person of, these are my priorities currently. I don't know how to fit this into those priorities, so I have to say no right now. I'm not saying I can't say yes later, but based on my priorities, I can't fit this in.
I don't want them to feel rejected. Yeah.
Right. And you're not. You build a sandbox and say, I'm only going to spend time on what's in the sandbox. Everything else, I'm out. And so just tell them, this is my sandbox and these are the constraints and I can't fit this in. So I have to say no, not I'm choosing to say no.
I like that. That's really good advice. Lots of people have been huge catalysts in my life and I want to be able to pay that forward. But there's a certain scale that can't happen at.
Also ask them what they want to get out of it.
What does a good request sound like in your inbox?
This is why I'd like to meet with you. This is what I want to learn from you. And if there's any way that I can help you, I would do it if I can.
You've been good in helping me sort through these seasons too. So I'll share my example and you can coach me in real time and other people can listen to that. So I entered the year with lots of fresh ambition and mostly clear goals of like what I wanted my time to look like. Came into the year and one of my daughters is having a pretty new for our family experience with anxiety that has really moved my schedule around and my mental availability to be present for the things I need to do, and like puts you on like hot coals when your phone rings and you don't sleep as well at night because things are weird and you're on the phone with coaches and counselors and teachers and just like trying to get your head around like, who is this person that I thought I knew really well? And I probably still need to have like a really good cry about it, but me being strong is the right thing right now. But at some point I need to be like, blah, that was gross. But I still need to function at a really high level, still need to do the things. So there were seasons when I would come to you and be like, my head and time is like really kind of in a shaker right now. Get me clear so that I can keep doing this. Because you don't have the luxury of saying like, I need to take 6 weeks, sort of sideline everything. And then I'll come back when everything is neat and tidy. Like, got to keep moving the things forward. These are also responsibilities that I have, even though she is my most important priority right now. My personality is not to just drop everything else. So what's your advice or guidance, or what would you pick inside of that?
I think you need to be careful that you don't enter anxiety because of this. And anxiety comes from not fixing. So you don't have to fix it to get rid of that risk, but you do have to be making progress towards fixing and focus your efforts on fixing, solving, accommodating, whatever you can do. That will keep you out of the space of just being, this is wasting me, spending me, all those things. It's Am I doing the right things in order to solve the problem? Am I giving it the attention that it needs with what's within my control? And then go, that's all I can do. Because you can't do much else after that, and give yourself some credit for that.
I think it's my first parenting situation where I'm suddenly aware of how little control I actually have over these human beings who are actually their own entity, their own brains, their own, all that kind of stuff. And I am feeling what you're saying, which is like, I have to give myself credit for, even if there's not visible progress, if we tried some things, that at least ruled some things out. You know, like, okay, those things don't work. We made progress today, even if it's not all better. And I also think I want to be able to fix it on my timeline versus hers, which is hard.
Because yours is faster or slower?
Faster. Like, people have given me advice that like the organization can only change as fast as its ability to ingest change. And I'm seeing like her mind can only really absorb so many concepts in a day. You know what I mean? So I'm like, so I read all this stuff and like, it's like I can't treat her like a lab rat where I'm like, here you go. That didn't work. Okay, 15 minutes. Like, reset the timer. Like, here, let's try this. It's like, I got a letter. Like, okay, you're over. We've tried these things for the day. We need to just go to bed and kind of reset.
So there's a measuring stick you can use that with mindset. It's the idea of appropriate patience. And appropriate patience is it moving appropriately? So I can say, well, I don't have patience, so I'm going to push things. And then I find that their timeline's different. Well, now I have to adjust. But I'm not going to adjust all the way to their level. I'm going to still push it a hair, and I'm going to be patient that they're not as fast as I want, but we're a lot closer together than these extremes of, I don't want to change, I want you to change fast.
You know, going back to like the very beginning of this conversation, like the face their brutal facts, that was such an important, in solving really big things in the organization, it's like really important. Like, we all have to see the facts the same way for us to be able to move in the same direction to solve this. That phrase came to my head when I was like, oh, we have to get a shared understanding of what we're solving for. That's actually the first step of progress. And it was just interesting to me that I was like, this is literally the solving pattern in all the things. I can even point to my marriage, like, until we could both say this is the problem, we weren't able to like put things back together. So it's really interesting. I was like, wow, that solving pattern literally exists everywhere, including with a child who's much younger than me, but we had to get a shared understanding for her to participate in what we needed to do to move forward. That's actually, I'm just seeing that right now, but it's exactly what
you have to name the problem.
Yeah.
And agree to the problem. Otherwise, you don't know what you're fixing.
And I think it can, I don't know, for me, it can sometimes be hard to have courage to do that because it's like, I don't want to live in a bad news world. I don't want to. I want to be happy. I want there to be parties. I want there to be pink and for everybody to like, that was great. So I've had to really work at that and surround myself with people like you and my husband that are more like, no, this is just what's going on.
Yep.
We need to go there.
We're not supposed to like this world.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Scared Confident. Until next time, keep telling fear, you will not decide what happens in my life. I will. If you want to get the inside scoop, sign up for my newsletter. We decided to make content for you instead of social media algorithms. The link is waiting for you in show notes, or you can head over to tiffanysauter.com. Thanks for listening.